Top 10 Contract Law Research Topics. Contract law and state common law. Contract law is usually governed by state common law. At the same time, the rules of legal systems in various countries differ. In your essay, you may want to focus on contract law in the legal system of a particular country, example, German law or Anglo-American common law. Another option is to compare the rules of contract law in the legal systems of two different countries. Contract law in the ancient Rome. Contract law is a product of civilizational development that began to evolve after the advent of commerce. The first impetus for the development of contract law occurred in ancient Rome. The Romans divided contracts into written and unwritten. What did contract law look like in ancient Rome, and what was it used for? This is a fascinating research question. Contract attorney as a profession. Contracts are an integral part of daily life, trade, labor relations, real estate, etc. Contract attorneys are a sought-after profession that involves helping to draft, amend, and enforce various contracts. In your essay, you can consider the specifics of this career, the duties of a contract lawyer, and the necessary skills. The elements of a valid contract. Contracts come in different levels of complexity, emphasis, and timing. However, there are specific components that make agreements legally binding. These essential elements encompass legitimacy, capacity, offer, consideration, certainty, etc. We encourage you to delve into the vital constituents of a valid contract and underscore their importance in establishing enforceability. Electronic signature in contracts. Technological innovations are changing different areas of our lives, making many processes more accessible and efficient. One of the innovations of contract law is the electronic signature. Electronic contracts are just as legal as traditional paper contracts. They allow parties to sign contracts anytime, anywhere. We invite you to consider the advantages and disadvantages of this form of contract. Fraud versus misrepresentation. Like other legal and business spheres, contract law is susceptible to deception. In your paper, you could delve into misrepresentation and fraud in this area. An excellent idea is to compare these two notions. Misrepresentation can sometimes stem from innocence, while fraud constitutes a purposeful action. You can enrich your exploration by incorporating real-world instances. The role of contracts in everyday life. By making a purchase in a supermarket, one enters into a contractual relationship with the shop. By browsing web content, one agrees to the terms and conditions of its producer. To put it simply, a person must live in isolation not to enter into contracts on a daily basis. In your paper, you can focus on how contract law applies to typical scenarios in everyday life. Written versus oral contracts. The division of contracts into written and oral groups has its roots in ancient Roman law with its written and unwritten forms of law. This division has survived to this day, and we invite you to consider it in an essay. Compare the enforceability of oral versus written contracts, taking into account the fraud statute and exceptions to the rule. The Doctrine of Frustration. The doctrine of frustration comes into play when an unanticipated event occurs after the contract is signed, making its fulfillment impracticable. Understanding that this event is not attributable to either party's fault is essential. In your essay, you could examine the doctrine of frustration as a means for the involved parties to be excused from their contractual responsibilities. The concept of consideration in contract law. Consideration in contract law guarantees that each involved party gains something valuable from the transaction. The principle of consideration ensures the parties' voluntary engagement in the agreement. We encourage you to explore this notion, its significance in contract law, and the instances where exceptions arise. Find more research topics on studycorgi.com.